And the tomb that you have seen, or the Ayman Taha, when you visit the National Cemetery, is a person that I prayed his janazah in my mosque. And I know Ayman Taha very well. He went to the University of California, and he went there to protect the civilians. And that's why he took the ammunition from the civilian population to an outside area, and that's what things exploded. I think this film have put things in perspective, that Muslim community is very diverse. We have different ethnic backgrounds, different levels of cultural flavors, practice Islam. Very nice when they saw the Senegalese. It was Senegalese, I think, that in the film, and that showed the diversity of Muslims in America. The other things I would like to say that they put the human face into Islam, because many people don't realize that how many Muslims and the variety of Muslims in America. Really thank you for this kind of work.
I was very impressed with the film and the concept of the film to begin with, and having had an opportunity over the time to speak with some of the students that traveled, it's a marvelous journey that they took, and the revelations that come both to the students and for us who witnessed this through the film are quite remarkable. And there are subtle things that have been done in the film that I think are beautiful. When Frankie stands and asks the cultural anthropologist who's from, I think his name's Rosenberg, from Princeton, and says, you know, what's the category that the Muslim fits into? Over his shoulder is Brooks Brothers. Yeah. And there are little things in terms of this when we look that dress, attitude, even the subtleties with the students discovering themselves, their own prejudice, and when they look at in their own stereotypes of Southern versus Northern. The film is well done. It'll be a marvelous piece to spark individuals in discussion and in dialogue, and once again, it's a great opportunity. What I do believe is very important that for those who are non-Muslims to see is that the diversity and the intra-struggle that goes on, not only with American identity, but the identity of what is Islam today. And so this dichotomy that you see in the film of the question being asked is, what is American identity? It is also asking, what is that identity for a Muslim in the world, in the countries that they live in around the globe. Fascinating scene when they're with in New York in the large mosque with over 4,000, the capacity for 4,000. And the man interrupts the little argument that's going on and says, there's simply one Islam. And I think that that's the most poignant and beautiful piece of footage that was taken. So I commend all of you on this work.
You know, I've become very reluctant to participate in any documentary about Islam or Muslims anymore after having a number of, having my hopes dashed, thinking that the people who were producing them were, quite intelligent, and then seeing it finally screened on public television and seeing again the camels, the rolling sand dunes, the pictures of the woman veiled in black, and it just seems so difficult for people not to resort back to those old sort of iconic images of stereotypes of Islam and Muslims. So this is very refreshing because it's not that, but also it's not a documentary that tries to present an image of Islam that is, somehow the good Muslim or everything that you want to see. We have the, what we call the older uncles with their beards and their topies and their accents. Everyone who's in this documentary doesn't speak with a British or American accent, and that's really important too, because that is also who we are. So just to have that honesty about the community, and also to take away the fear of encountering those people in those places. The reality is that there are many Americans who are well-meaning, but they are really frightened of what might be going on behind the doors of the mosque. What happens in there? What do they do in there? It still remains a kind of taboo place. And to crack open those doors, to get in, to hear what's on the people's minds, and the people who, as I say, still you may not be used to encountering or talking to people who look like them very often. It takes away the strangeness of it. So I think that's going to be a really important contribution of this film.
I have to commend Professor Akbar Ahmed for taking on such a challenge, him and his team. It was obvious by that documentary they covered a lot of ground and saw a lot of America, including the scary parts, the Borat-like moments in New Orleans. Intriguing to hear Americans saying that what it means to be American is to have sex all the time. I'm still British, which probably explains my sad social life. But in actual fact, it is very challenging because breaking down stereotypes is very, very difficult. I work with Al Jazeera English, and normally when you say you work for Al Jazeera, you clear a room in record time. Either you're all it's late, you're all very tired or something. But it did make me, I used to always joke how, the word Al had become the most terrifying word to the American population, and Al in Arabic just means the. But when you add Al-Aqsa, Al-Qaeda, Al Jazeera, it becomes very scary. Of course, you have Al Gore, and started it all with Al Capone, but it's been a challenge also from a media perspective to try to break down the stereotypes. So I think it's very good for people to see the breadth and diversity of Muslims in America. I'm really glad and proud of the Professor and his team, which I was very honoured to have on my show, performed such a great job with covering America like this.
Thank you for the opening statements. Now, any comments, questions from the audience? We've got some very distinguished people. Jan, you've got your hand up.
Yes.
Would you like to come up and speak through the mic?
Oh, okay. My name is Jan Duplange with the Interfaith Speakers Bureau. I agree that it was a very courageous and wonderful film on so many different levels. I was interested if you'd tell us about how long the film took, how many hours of film did you shoot, about the editing and what you had to choose and how you chose and selected what you came up with to put it together, because this is very hard to put together. Did you have a theme going in? Things like that.
Well, Jan, we had, as you know, a whole team. Craig, of course, was the director, but each member of the team, they were introduced. Jonathan is not here. He's unfortunately away. He's got some family business. But each member of the team had a camera. So they were also filming as much as they could. So when we got back, we literally had... Craig, how many hours do you think you had of film? 150 hours of film, and they had films of everything. And of course the challenge was to reduce that to 90 minutes, because we really got some incredible footage. So that really was a challenge. Babar then came into the picture and got his excellent editor to work with us, and the music director, and we spent a lot of time working with these people and making a film. Of course the theme is there, there's travel. It's, as our panel has pointed out, it's a very sophisticated film. For example, the Bourbon Street scene, now you pick that up because it's so raw. A lot of Americans will be shaken and shocked. Most Muslims will be, because Muslims avoid that. The Imam of New Orleans was driving me around, won't drive through that street while he was driving me around. He said, I just don't come here. The scene starts, if you see it again, with my discussion with a jazz musician trying to locate the relationship between Sufism and jazz. So the scene begins on a very high spiritual note. and it's all the way down from then on. Because we go into Bourbon Street, we have all that women, sex, drunkenness and revelries and so on, and then it ends with that very cynical man with a camera saying that my program is even more daring than Girls Gone Wild. My program is called Girls Gone Crazy. And I capture these women in this drunken condition, film them, and sell this product internationally. So we start that sequence with a quest for spiritualism and mysticism, and we end it with globalization, the demand for women to be shown naked on the camera. So each scene, each sequence is very, very subtle, and you really will have to see it the second time. And Jan took a lot of effort and time to make this and to think about it. And luckily the team has been, as I said, working about a year on this non-stop, very dedicated, very committed, and this is their country. So for me, I'm enjoying looking at America, discovering America as an anthropologist. But these are young Americans. These are discovering their own country. They are the future leaders of this country. They have to guide it, lead it. And for them to understand America in this way is absolutely unique, because they have access to America which even their parents wouldn't dream of having. And that is why the richness, the texture of this film is something that, and at the editing process it was really painful, because we had to really make choices, what to leave in, what not to leave in. And in the end you saw some glimpses. And perhaps in a 4-part series we can even expand some of this.
Aziz Fan from Saudi TV. Since you've been throughout the country, what is the most thing that surprised you about Muslim community and where it was?
I think I'd like each member of my team to answer that, what surprised them the most. I think you saw in the film that there were some very pleasant surprises for me. So can I ask, where's Frankie? Is here? Frankie, can you come up? Haley, Frankie and Craig, can you, each one of you answer and share with us what surprised you the most? And maybe we can even ask the panel then what they thought was the most surprising thing in the film.
I think the most surprising thing for me was just in terms of the Muslim community, the diversity of the Muslim community. And there was a lot that didn't make the film. I mean, we interviewed Cambodian Muslims, we interviewed many Bosnian Muslims, we interviewed the entire Muslim world is in the United States. And this is what we were trying to do, was trying to see how people were living together and the strength of these ideals that we have, pluralism and so on, that you saw at the end of the film. So I think just the diversity. And then, I mean, I was just surprised to see the United States through different eyes, a different lens. And this is what we said we were doing. We were looking at America through the lens of the Muslim experience. So you get to see very often, as we saw some of those sequences, a different looking country than the one that we know.
What surprised me the most, I think, was that so many Muslims said that America is the best place to live and to practice Islam. I didn't expect that. I expected a lot of people to say, oh, we're victims, it's horrible after 9/11, da-da-da, but it wasn't like that. Of course, there are many people who have had a hard time after 9/11, and we saw that in the film, but so many people are so happy to live here. They say America is the best place to practice Islam, as we said. And there are a lot of really vibrant, integrated, happy communities. Can we turn the light on? Yeah, just go for it.
All right, I will.
Sorry, Craig.
Okay, I think the most surprising thing for me was how many different people of different backgrounds are converting to Islam. A lot of white people are converting to Islam for a sense of moral clarity. You know, they're like Nicole, for example. She was sick of running around, going to clubs, getting drunk, and being obscene. So she goes to Islam because it's a straight path, and it gives you structure to your life. And we saw a lot of that. And after going throughout the country, you know, anyone can be a Muslim. Like Frankie said, we met Cambodians, there are Somalians, you know, there are white people, African Americans. So it actually shows just how diverse Islam is in itself.
Thank you team. Now, could we request the panel to just comment on this, anything that surprised you in the film itself?
Is the the tablet said Jehovah, God, and Allah. That was very. I have not seen that, and I think this was really a good point, in that the Islam was included in early, America.
You know, Imam Majid, I read in the papers, in the Arab papers, that Dalia Mugaid had advised President Obama about his speech in Cairo. And maybe if you had advised him, you'd have included the tablets.
You're right. It should have been.
I guess being a journalist and having travelled a lot, there was nothing really that surprised me as such, though I was glad so much was included. I think the theme that I hope people pick up on is, and I guess the team would be able to best explain this, but certainly what I saw in the documentary was the theme that came through with all the Muslims that the team met was a huge sense of tolerance and love for America. And I think the thing that surprises a lot of people in America, the non-Muslim community, the non-Asian or African or Arab community, is that people come from outside and they actually do love the country. They do very much like being a part of America, and it's very easy to alienate them, thinking just because there's a different color of skin or a different kind of dress code that the people must be totally alien to this country. And I think the fact that they're very American came through, and I hope that's the message that gets across as well.
No, I don't have anything to add, but I'm going to say that your next documentary could actually be picking up those kind of artifacts of Islam in early America. When I was I remember the first time I went to the State Department for their annual iftar. I was just sort of wandering around the room before dinner started, and I noticed this beautiful portrait of a striking gentleman, and dressed in his turban and his uniform. And there's a plaque there saying that this is from the Bay of Tunis as a gift in friendship to the American people following the assassination of Abraham Lincoln. And I went up to one of the deputy secretaries of state. I said, "Portrait? Did you put that in there for the iftar?" He said, "No, this is a portrait in this room, in the Benjamin Franklin room. It's been here forever." And then we started to talk and ticked off in the top of our mind, what other things do we know about? We know about that the Prophet Muhammad is on the frieze of the Supreme Court as someone who established the law. We know that on the floor of the Congress you have Suleiman Qanuni, Suleiman the lawgiver. He's there with the other lawgivers, with Justinian and others. So it would be interesting to pick up all of these things and just make them kind of accessible, because the gap that we think is there simply is really illusory.
The one thing that it didn't surprise me but was, I think, incredibly refreshing is, again, the honesty of the film, in the sense of looking at both the reflection of what those who were asking the questions projected the prejudice might be, even in the South when they didn't find it, spoken as a good Southerner, and also the understanding of the diversity and this struggle between those two identities again, I think is really brilliantly done. And I think if when we look at American history and we take de Tocqueville's travels through America and looking and talking about the strong nature of the individual, this is where how does one keep one's personal individual identity and yet create a society which has the type of diversity that America does. And I think that this is the next step, and I think that this is a wonderful opportunity to talk about what it is for somebody comes in, when the majority of those who come to America and participate in America as Muslims are in the second half of this century, and the challenges that come, because it's a whole different immigrant experience.
I know we have some very special guests. The parents of our team are here, and I request one member of the families to come up and make a comment on behalf of the family, starting with Terry or Susan. Would one of you like to come up and make a comment? about what you thought about the film.
Professor Ahmed has quite a way of putting people on the spot. I've noticed that with my daughter quite a bit, and myself. I think it was a very ambitious project. I think it was very well conceived, very dutifully and laboriously executed. They worked very, very hard for a long time, and I think that this is a very good start for their project before the book comes out. I think that the message is very important, and I hope that it's well received and widely distributed so that everyone can start to understand each other a little bit better. It's going to take a long time for us to all understand each other, and this is a good way to break the ice.
You do know how to put people on the spot. The thing that strikes me the most in viewing the film today is it brings us back to our basics. What strikes me is the fact that it takes us all back to the beginning, the Constitution, all the main tenets of our country. And this is re-energizing. It makes me feel good. Even though I was very close to it, I was very surprised because I've never seen the picture before. This is a fabulous film, and I believe it has international ramifications. Well done, very well done.
It is late, but thank you for your effort. I think it was a wonderful film, and I hope it's well received everywhere. I always wanted to take Frankie on a trip throughout America. I was never able to do that. Now you have, Akbar Ahmed, so thank you for taking him under your wing. I found out California. that's an interesting thing. And what was the other one?
Tallahassee.
Tallahassee.
I know it's late and you've been very patient. I do want to apologize for the late start. It wasn't necessarily Islamic timing and Islamic punctuality. It was simply that there were popular speakers speaking upstairs and they had a huge audience, and most of the audience was locked up, and unfortunately the enthusiasm of the audience just kept the speakers going. So it's a late hour now, and I would request the panel to make their final comments, and we will then wish you a good night.
I think that maybe the film should generate discussions, we call them like a study circle, like dialogue. Have people to watch the film, bring Muslims and people of other faith, and watch the film together and have discussion around it. I think that will be more also beneficial in the grassroots level. I think this is a very good way we can build understanding.
Yeah, I'm really hoping that we can find ways to disseminate this. I was speaking to Professor Ahmed about this earlier, and I think that in many of our dialogue groups we're looking for something to take us a little bit deeper, and I think that this is something that could be a very good tool for dialogue. So many issues can be pulled out of this and discussed in greater detail. So I'm, as an educator, I'm looking forward to this, using this as an educational tool.
Again, it's a great job, and I think it will be an excellent tool. And I think that it begins to show, as we've all stated over and over, the incredible diversity that has to be understood. That even though religiously there is one Islam, there are certainly many, many faces culturally, and that's something that we have to do and understand. And hopefully this will help us from, in general, and especially speaking from the non-Muslim community, begin to stop this blanket stereotyping that happens of all religious and ethnic groups, which is so counterproductive, but yet happens so many times. And I also think that the one element that I think that, in contrast, there is another side that I'm sure is there, is that there's a tremendous amount of America that simply embraces Islam and looks for that and sees this as yet another petal on the beautiful flower that unfolds that makes America.